Everyday individuals, merely fulfilling their responsibilities without any conscious ill will, can become cogs in a terrible mechanism of destruction. These were the robust words of psychologist Stanley Milgram, who shocked the global psychology community in the 1960s. He mused, "Could it be that Eichmann and his million accomplices in the Holocaust were just following orders? Could we call them all accomplices?" Milgram, 1974.
Under what conditions would a person obey authority who commanded actions that went against conscience?
Now picture this. A man in a lab coat instructs you to administer electric shocks to a stranger using a dial that has escalating voltage levels in exchange for a sum of $4 just to show up, a significant amount in the 1960s. Would you comply? Inquiry, isn't it? This was the underlying premise of the Milgram experiment carried out surreptitiously at Yale University in 1961. To help you visualize the severity of these shocks, imagine the jolt from touching a battery's end, but far stronger. The shocks were just below a taser's intensity, yet potent enough to make your body involuntarily recoil. Participants were led to believe they were bringing about these shocks on another person and pushed to distressing lengths by an authority figure. In reality, they weren't electrocuting anyone. This was the grand deception involved in the experiment. Amid the tumult, this disquieting experiment, garnished with deception and financial incentives, helped enhance our understanding of the degree to which a person can be manipulated to carry out acts contrary to their moral compass. This fascinating and contentious inquiry, involving payment, deception, and obedience, is the crux of the Milgram experiment. Who was the man behind this shocking experiment, you may wonder? Let's delve into the intriguing life of Stanley Milgram. He was a questioner, constantly plagued by one inquiry. Could regular individuals conduct horrifying acts just because they were instructed to do so? This pondering kept Milgram awake at night, leading him down a tireless path of inquiry about human psychology. Born in 1933 to Jewish immigrants, Stanley's life was deeply marked by the Holocaust. This devastating event stole the lives of numerous families, its effects deeply etched in his psyche. The horrors of the event propelled him towards a mission to understand human obedience, authority, and power. Stanley Milgram was not just a result of his time. He was an accomplished scholar with a PhD in social psychology from Harvard, earned in 1960. His early career was marked by a string of accomplishments at esteemed institutions like Harvard and Yale. His work was hailed for its originality and insight, making him a respected figure in his field. Stanley's understanding of human behavior was influenced by eminent psychologists such as Solomon Asch. Asch's conformity experiments particularly influenced Milgram, leaving a lasting impact. The link between his personal history, influences, and the path-breaking Milgram experiment is indisputable. This experiment, the brainchild of a man stirred by the harsh realities of history and his tireless pursuit of understanding, redefined our comprehension of morality, free will, and personal responsibility. In the upcoming section, we will delve deeper into the startling revelations of the Milgram experiment. This study was the product of Stanley Milgram's relentless curiosity and his steadfast dedication to unraveling the complexities of human behavior. In 1961, deep within the confines of Yale University's Lindsley Chittenden Hall, the Milgram experiment commenced, a groundbreaking exploration of obedience that altered our understanding. The essence of the experiment was simple. Participants were led to believe they were involved in a learning study, assuming the teacher role. A confederate of Stanley Milgram, the ingenious brain behind, acted as the learner. The teacher was instructed to administer increasing electric shocks whenever the learner answered a question wrong. Recalling the experience, one teacher shared, "His cries of pain echoed in my ears, making me question my actions." However, the shocks were fictional. The learner was merely pretending to be in pain. The profound deception was essential to the Stanley Milgram observed. The outcomes I witness are unsettling. They suggest that human nature may fail to keep individuals from brutality under a malevolent authority. This triggered varied reactions from the participants. Some questioned the procedure, distressed, while others adhered to instructions, genuinely believing were causing pain. In essence, the Milgram experiment, with its basic structure and considerable revelations, reshaped our understanding of obedience. As the experiment progressed, the tension within the room began to escalate. The learner, a confederate of Stanley Milgram, started to complain of heart trouble. They would let out groans of discomfort, only increasing in intensity with each supposed shock. "My heart, it's starting to bother me," the learner would whimper, his voice strained and filled with fear. The teacher's reaction varied. Some showed immediate concern, their faces etched with worry. Others hesitated, torn between stopping the experiment and continuing as instructed. "Should we stop?" some would ask, their voices barely above a whisper. But the experimenter, with an unwavering voice, would respond, "The experiment requires that you continue." This encouragement to proceed, despite the learner's apparent discomfort, added another layer of complexity to the experiment. The teacher was caught in a struggle between empathy for the learner and obedience to the experimenter. The experimenter's reassurances served as a sedative to their rising anxiety, pushing them to continue. This part of the experiment further tested the teacher's obedience, pushing them into a moral dilemma. The teachers were forced to grapple with their own values, their empathy wrestling with their commitment to follow instructions. This scene, a crucial part of the Milgram experiment, set the stage for the shocking discoveries that were to come. As the teachers started to question their actions, hesitating or outright refusing to administer further shocks, the experimenter had a set of prods to ensure the continuation of the experiment. You may wonder, what were these prods? Well, they were carefully crafted statements, each escalating in intensity and authority. Prod 1, "Please continue," or "Please go on." This was the gentlest prod, a polite request to continue with the task. Prod 2, "The experiment requires that you continue." Here, the experimenter reminded the participant of the experiment's requirement, subtly introducing the notion of necessity. Prod 3, "It is absolutely essential that you continue." The language grew stronger, emphasizing the absolute necessity of the participant's obedience. Prod 4, "You have no other choice, you must go on." The final prod was the most authoritative, leaving no room for negotiation or refusal. These prods, escalating in their intensity, were used to encourage the participants to continue with the experiment, further highlighting the power of authority. They not only urged the participants to continue, but also subtly shifted the responsibility from the participants to the experimenter. The participants thus felt less accountable for their actions, making it easier for them to comply with the instructions. This manipulation of authority and responsibility was a crucial component of the Milgram experiment. As Stanley Milgram himself noted, obedience often leads to abandoning personal accountability for one's actions. The stark simplicity of this experiment demonstrated the significant influence of authority figures and how we often relinquish personal accountability under their command. Psychologist Thomas Blass, an expert in the field, concurred, stating that the Milgram trials reveal the unexpected power of obedience to authority. The experiment's findings were indeed profound, prompting us to reassess our understanding of personal accountability and obedience. It encouraged us to reconsider our personal limits when under authoritative influence. As Haslam elucidated, the experiment propels individuals to introspectively question their potential reactions when placed in similar circumstances. By shedding the darker side of obedience, the Milgram experiment, despite controversies, has undeniably instigated self-reflection on the lengths we might go under authoritative directives. It serves as a haunting reminder of the potential consequences of forfeiting personal responsibility to those in power. Could it be that Eichmann and his million accomplices in the Holocaust were just following orders? Could we call them all accomplices? Dr. Milgram queried in the aftermath of his famed obedience experiment. This study, an influential episode in social psychology, was merely the starting point. Undeterred, Dr. Milgram continued with his pioneering work, encountering both praise and criticism. His experiments continually pushed boundaries, stirring questions about ethical lines he was willing to tread. The unveiling of the Milgram experiment's actual purpose left participants in emotional upheaval. Relief at not having inflicted harm quickly turned into shock and remorse. They had displayed a troubling readiness to hurt another simply by obeying orders.